Yeah, so let us know where you're from, and we'll do question and answer later. I'm Pastor Ed Treat. In case you don't know me, I'm the founder, director of the Center of Addiction and Faith, and I'm a Lutheran pastor. I'm in long-term recovery myself, and I left the church about 4 years ago to 3 years ago to do this ministry full time because I got to the point where I felt like, my goodness, the church is not doing anything about addiction, and people are dying like crazy, and we need to do something about it. Somebody needs to do something, and nobody is. There's stuff on the evangelical end of the spectrum where people are doing some things, but for those of us that are maybe more progressive or mainline, there's no real good resources. And so the Center of Addiction and Faith was formed to gather all the resources that we could find that would be fitting for people of faith. And we try to assemble those, and we try to bring them to you through our conference every year and through our webinars. And so this is the work I feel called to do, and I'm really happy to be doing it. And I'm excited. So many are ready for this conversation. We're having some really great turnouts at our events. And these webinars have been just a wonderful thing. When I first started, I was going to go tell the world about what I was doing, and COVID hit, and I was stuck at home. And I thought, what am I going to do now? Well, it turns out I can actually do more online than I could do in person, trying to reach out locally. So it's been a real great thing. Although I haven't figured out yet how to get paid. I do look for support, so I'll be asking you for that a little bit later. So if you're a person who's in a place to provide support, I would love to visit with you and talk about that, because we could use the help. Um, we want to save those lives, and we know that we can do that with God's help. And we'll turn to God now with the Serenity Prayer. Would you please join me as I say this prayer? God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen.
Amen.
Our webinar host today is George Wood, a published author, an ordained minister, pastoral counselor, a recovery ministry founder, and a recovery activist. He's got his hand in a lot of stuff. He's just a busy guy. He does his book, The Uncovery, is a delightful book, and it really raises some really important issues around how we do recovery in this country and around the world, or everywhere. He's pointed out some flaws and how we can do it better, understanding the power of community to heal trauma. George also has his own podcast called The Sober Truth. The Sober Truth. It's offered through the Center of Addiction and Faith, and it's also wherever you get your podcast. Look for The Sober Truth with George Wood. So he's our host today, and I bring him now and let him take over the webinar. Thanks, George.
Thank you, Pastor Ed. It is just wonderful to be here, as always, with all of you. And we haven't now, if you've been to any of the webinars in the past, we haven't done it in this format where, we're all on the same screen and all. So I just want to remind everybody to please keep your microphones muted. I'm not sure if we have that capability to do that ourselves. So please make sure that they're muted so we don't have any interruptions. But it's just really great to be here. I want to echo with what Pastor Ed said about how, we need to do something different, especially as the church. And a lot of times that is just helping people be aware of what is happening. In case you didn't know, the 31st, in just a couple of days, is National Overdose Day, where we remember all those that have either died by overdose or suffered through overdose. And then the entire month of September is National Recovery Month, along with National Suicide Prevention Month. Every year I complain about this. I don't know why they put those two big things in the same month. I think they could have been separate. And so we could have focused on them individually.
Oh, yeah, you can.
But yeah, there we go. So the microphones, if we could have them muted, that would be great. But yeah, so just to know that National Recovery and Suicide Prevention Month is all of September. And so I got to tell you, last week, Libbie and I jumped on a call together, and I come from a charismatic background. And so God shots is you know, a lot of what us charismatics talk about. Where do we see God? How do we hear God? How do we, you know, feel God in the everyday? And so I was, you know, as I was on the call with her and just really hearing about her and her life and why she wrote the book, I was just super intrigued to really start to dig into it. And I got to tell you, I couldn't put the book down. I ended up, you know, cover to cover with the book. It's just an amazing read. It's an amazing way of just looking at just circumstances in your life that you know just happen every day, and we can either choose to see God or not see God. We don't have to make it super spiritual, although it is super spiritual. And so it's just a beautiful read, and I'm really excited to dig in and ask her some questions about what I've seen in the book, and just to really get her input. But just so you know a little bit about her, Libbie Stellas has her MDiv. She's been a writer, a teacher, a non-denominational minister for over 40 years. Libbie has led spiritual workshops and preached for all major religious denominations in the U.S. Her passion lies in helping people capture and hold on to the sacred in their lives as part of everyday life, and not just on Sundays. And she's also a person in long-term recovery. And, you know, she just has an amazing story. And I just want to say, welcome, Libbie, to the show today.
Thanks. Thank you so much, George. Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Now,
Behind me, my screensaver is a God shot because I live in Arizona, and this is one of the most recent sunsets we had. So I thought, just
wow.
Yeah.
That's nice. So you're not actually sitting outside right now?
No, it's because it's only 86, but it's going to be 100. So
yeah, that's just a little bit too much for me. So I did want, now you are being so kind and generous with your time today, because you yourself are suffering with COVID right now as we speak.
yes.
So
It's true. I was determined to be someone who 3 or 4 years from now, the local TV station would interview me because I never got COVID. But that is not what happened. So
oh
I feel
yeah,
it's pretty mild, but I'm hanging in there.
do we need to have masks on?
No, that's why it's Zoom. I just was like, great, we're on Zoom. I don't have to worry about that.
You know, when COVID first happened, I said that joke to a bunch of people, and no one's ever once gotten that joke. It's just apparently not funny. Um, so you wrote the book God Shots during COVID, right? And so it sort of was an inspiration for the book. So why don't you jump in and tell us a little bit about what inspired you to write God Shots, and, you know, how did you choose the stories that best capture the sacred moments in everyday life?
Okay, so some of the stories were already in some written form. So the beginning part of the book is around motherhood. And then it moves into stories about a trip I took across country, and was gone for 9 months. Those kind of existed, and and when I show my little slides, you'll see part of the reasons they existed in writing is because at the time that they happened, I actually wrote them down a little bit. You know, like oh, this happened. Otherwise, they would be lost, I'm sure. And then the next group of them, you know, I just had this, they just come to me when I actually am having the experience. And the key is that I write them down in some way. I kind of capture them. And sometimes I call it catching a moment. And so that's what led me to here now. This is all this time. I'm at home. I can't do much of anything else. And I've always wanted to put them together in a book form. So I started working on it.
Yeah, and you really, you know, go in really, you get really personal in some of those stories. You know, I was really moved when you shared about the birth of your child and just the struggle that you had, you know, with postpartum, and just really how, you know, you feeling disconnected until, you know, you had that experience with your child that really helped you connect. And I was wondering if you could share maybe one of your favorite personal experiences from the book where intuition played a significant role in really revealing God's presence.
Yeah, some of them are in the book and some of them continue to happen. One that just recently happened. I live in Green Valley, Arizona, and across the street from me is a golf course that didn't make it through the 2008, kind of crash. And so the land was donated to the county. And so all the golf paths are still there and you can go and walk 5 miles and it's lovely. I go there most mornings, and most mornings in various parts of my walk, I see hundreds of ants kind of all over the place running around. And I find myself looking at them kind of going, where are you guys going? And so then sometimes I would see one ant carrying I don't know, food or a seed or something, and they're kind of moving slowly. And then just a little while ago, I was walking and I saw, I don't know, 10 or 12 ants that were all around one piece of food and they were moving. And the God shot for me is, I have, from my history, I have this thing that I kind of resort to. I'm all alone. I have to do everything by myself. There isn't anybody to help me. And especially before I got sober, I was running around like those ants, just kind of all over the place going, oh, what am I doing? And then I tried to carry it myself. And it wasn't until in 1990, I was 6 months sober. The International AA convention happened to be in Seattle, Washington, where I lived. And so I went with some new friends to the Kingdom, which no longer exists. And there I stood with 65,000 other recovering people. And I had this well up of this amazing experience of like, oh, this is enough. There's enough support. There's enough people. There's enough, I can do this. And so in that walk, when I saw those ants, that I connected to all of that again. And so I could see it in an everyday thing. It could connect me with a past experience, and it actually spoke to me that day because I was having a day where I was like, yeah, I got to do this and I got to do that, and it's all up to me and blah, 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 blah. And I'd kind of forgotten and let go that I'm not alone and there's always help and resources for me.
How would you, just in case anybody's wondering, how would you describe what is a God shot?
Okay. Well, I'm gonna use my little screen here and try and share, and I'll do that right now.
Good for it.
Oh, the host has disabled my screen sharing. So whoever can fix that.
Yeah. Katie, if you're listening, if you could re-enable her screen sharing, that would be great.
If not, oh, okay. Oh, well, can you
It's
see?
good.
Now?
It's good now.
good. It's on
Okay.
now.
All right. So, I think we have to, how do I go to the next one? So for me, it starts in the negative, what a God shot is not, right? And people call it an unexpected convergence of events that don't have any particular significance. People would tell me that, when I saw those ants, they're like, yeah, okay, so they're ants, they're just doing what they do.
Libby, do you have a screen up? Do you have an image up? Are
I
you sharing
do.
your screen? Well,
I
I'm not
think,
seeing it. Are you seeing it, George?
No.
no,
Yeah,
I'm
no.
seeing, I guess I'm seeing it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Huh.
That's weird.
Okay, well, what I can do is it doesn't really matter. So I'm talking about what it isn't, right?
Sure.
For example, when you run into a friend in an unexpected place, a train station, it's a coincidence, right? It's a coincidence, but it may not have any particular meaning to you or to them. Now, that's not to say it couldn't, but just generally people might always say something's just a coincidence. Other people would talk about serendipity, right? And that's generally defined as good luck in making an unexpected or fortunate discovery. It's kind of a fluke. It's a stroke of luck. Again, when people say it was just serendipity, or it was serendipity, that's a fine definition for anybody who wants it. But it also could be a God shot. And then the last one that I'm particularly around thinking about these days is people who say that it's a manifestation. And that's the act of making something theoretical real or publicly displaying. It also can refer to an event. And generally people believe in those that they can manifest their own destiny by envisioning something. And that could also be part of a God shot, but my caution about that is that it can tend to make us think we are manifesting, we are creating this thing to happen, meaning we're kind of left God out of it from my experience. So what I call a God shot is something, it's a comment, a recognition event that happens by chance that has a profound effect on you. And it proves to be an unexpected blessing, an insight, or an answer for us. So it has to have both of those. It's something uncommon or that happens, but it's the effect that it has on you that really makes it, for me, a God shot. So when I was putting this together, I guess I'd also say, fostering God shots, the practice of gratitude is, for me, the number one thing that creates it. To say thank you for anything that is a God shot for you. Be open to them in the present, to write them down at least cryptically, and then to share them in particularly, because your God shot could be a God shot for somebody else, and it will help you hold on to it. So when I was putting these slides together, this, you can't see it, unfortunately.
Well, it just came up for a minute. So
oh, did it?
Yeah, it did.
Oh, it's up now?
No, it's back down again. So.
That's so weird. Well, there was, if you know the cartoon For Better or For Worse, I'm going to have to find a way to send it to you. Katie, can we send it to everybody? But the oldest son was out, was a hummingbird flew into the house, and he was doing all these things to try and catch it. Right? And then he couldn't. And oh, geez. And so then he,
it's up now.
Yeah, now I know.
Yeah.
Katie, can you see it now?
Yeah.
Okay. So there he is. He's catching this hummingbird, and he's holding it, and he takes it outside and he lets it go. And what he's thinking is he's writing this down. Every so often you're given the chance to touch a miracle. Today I held a hummingbird in my hand. That's a God shot. He reflected on it. It had meaning for him. And he could then talk about what that meaning was. And then you hold on to it. Thank you, Katie. I think you saved me there.
Yeah, that's good. I love that. Especially the process that you really kind of incorporate with it. Yeah, it's really good. I have to ask now, your father was Orthodox, your mother was Catholic. You ended up being raised Catholic, but did the Orthodox come in at all?
Not very much. My father was first generation born in this country, Greek. His mother was very religious and insisted upon him being very religious. So by the time he married and had kids, he was pretty separate from all of that. But we did get taken to long Easter services and
St. Basil.
Yeah, all of that, because it was just because we always visited his parents at Easter time. So that was there. But interestingly enough, he actually died when I was 12. He was 43 years old.
Oh.
And about a year or so before he died, before he knew he had cancer even, he became interested in reconnecting with his Orthodox roots. I don't know very much about that, but I know it happened. And I've often wondered what was the impetus for that. Unfortunately, there's no one who can answer that question for me. So, but I do.
Yeah.
Think about
it. I'm a really big fan of the Greek Orthodox faith. So I wanted to ask that for personal reasons.
Yeah. Okay.
So how has your 40-year journey as a non-denominational minister influenced the themes in the book, God Shots?
I think for me, it universalizes them much more. So beyond working with Christian churches, at least one of my positions, I worked with Buddhist organizations, all the different parts of Judaism. The only one I didn't work with was any Muslim congregations. But so it called on me to look at my way of talking. How Christian was it, and could I branch it out so that anybody could connect with it? And part of that time with Christian churches, and especially with individuals in Christian churches who had experienced very negative experiences within the church, it was important that I could find a way for them to stay connected to their spirituality and a God of their understanding, so that the words of Christianity didn't trip them up. Because it's not, I don't want to trip anybody up. And if they would be like, no, I don't want to. So a good example for me is, for a while I worked with women who had been sexually abused. Okay. And they would, and so people would say, they read that Psalm 23 to me and I hate it. And it's, or they look at something. And so some of our scripture can, if you have been harmed, can sound like God can find me anywhere and do anything he wants to me. Now, that's not how I experience it now, but I do know that people, especially women, can be caught in that. And I'm like, I don't want that to be for you. So let's set that aside. Let's find out where your spirituality is that works for you. And maybe we'll get to a place where you can experience a God who it's comforting to know can find you and protect you.
That's really good. That's really good. I know I led a trauma-informed Bible study last year, and that was a huge theme, all the themes around trauma and how when you're hurt and been traumatized, scripture can re-traumatize you when you don't really understand the goodness of God.
Right.
What do you, in your experience, what are some of the most common ways people overlook the sacred in their lives?
Busyness is a big part of it. They're just, we're all just trying to get by. Some definition in their head that it couldn't possibly be because it's not happening in a church, or it's not serious, or it's I know I walked with a number of people when during the COVID and on recovery meetings on Zoom, and we would get to step 3, and that it kind of generate all of that, or step 11, which is about continuing to develop our spirituality. And people would say, but I can't do that. And because they have an image, an idea of what it's supposed to be. And so anything that can break through that, a friend of mine who's in one of those meetings was like, well, I go walking every morning. And is that? I'm like, yeah, could be prayer and meditation. Really? It's because they've incorporated some weird, well, not weird, but some definition that they think that it has to be, and I did too for a long time. If it isn't a spectacular moment that God is like announcing something to me, then it isn't spiritual. But we are, that whole line, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. So if we look at it that way, then anything can be.
Yeah. I already picked up on a couple times you've used this word, but it seems like intuition is big in your spiritual life. How do you think someone can cultivate a deeper sense of intuition to recognize these spiritual moments?
I think first and foremost, it's this practice of gratitude, meaning and this is kind of new that I have formalized it for myself, but I start every day thanking for the day, thanking for whatever. And then I don't know, like you, but me, I can't find my cell phone half the time. So when I find it, I just say thank you. So anything
Hmm.
that can put me in that mode of gratitude for me allows me to see things more. Intuition, for some people, I think they would say, well, that's maybe a stronger gift that I have than they have. I don't know that it's a little like, in recovery, we talk about the stupendous experience of God and then the educational way of meeting God. And that's what I think most people, me included, have, is an educational way of connecting with God. It grows. And
Hmm.
so we have to foster it because, what we don't pay attention to tends to go away. So
Yeah.
the gratitude, the writing it, the telling yourself, oh, I was walking and I really was praying that I wish that I could could know something about what God wanted me to do. And an eagle flew overhead. Now, for me, eagles are big deals. So I was like, oh, now can I definitely say that was God? No, but it was for me. So then being able to tell someone about it, and then also even writing a short journal entry that says, today I saw this is what happened. And then you could leave it alone. But when you go back and read it, you go, oh yeah, that's right, that happened.
Hmm.
Don't
Yeah.
do them. If we don't do those things, I think we lose them. And I don't believe that God says, well, you're not paying attention, so I'm not going to do it anymore. It just means we're missing them.
Hmm. That's really good. How have you seen people's lives really begin to change? I mean, especially as a recovery leader, leading meetings and I'm imagining, sponsoring people and all that type of stuff, but then also as, a minister and all the different things you've done in your life. Have you seen people's lives begin to change when they begin to be able to see God in their everyday life?
Um, I see it in the way they behave towards themselves,
Mm,
with more kindness, with more empathy for themselves. And when I'm with them with other people, I see that extended to other people. Um, Self-forgiveness grows. All of those things that I think are obstacles to us embracing the gratitude and the gifts of God, and anything I can do to support them. So I have a sponsee who has a habit, which I don't think is a great habit, of saying sorry to just about anything that sounds like it's like she's done something wrong. And I'm like, no, no, we're gonna stop this. And over the time, she has, started to reflect on it and kind of see how that works for her. And that really, she's a wonderful human being who may have some things that she needs to apologize for and do, but if the habit is, doesn't serve her, doesn't serve
mm.
her to be present and loving in her life.
Yeah, yeah. I think we all have, habits or coping mechanisms that served us at one point in our life, but then they tend to no longer, serve us at other periods
Yeah.
of life,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, I have some of my obstacles is I'm very good at organizing things, but but unfortunately I'm too happy to manage your life for you. So I have to like recognize it and go, oh yeah, that's right. It's your life. It's not my life. If I want to sort of feel like I don't know, magnanimous and wonderful or whatever, I can get into being a martyr, and that doesn't help anybody either. So, so I think of those, all those things that step 4 and in recovery has helped me to see that they really did help me survive. That I really needed those ways of being, and they are really messing up my life now if I continue them.
Yeah, yeah. When you're working with, a person in recovery, especially someone that is just really down and out, and they're feeling disconnected from God. Yeah, I know the gratitude list, but I've also, as a recovery leader, people tend to like that doesn't necessarily help them. Do you have any other advice for people that are just feeling disconnected from God and not really being able to see him in, their everyday life?
Yeah, when I first got sober, and I was professionally in the ministry business at that time, and was sure that I was a total fraud. My sponsor at the time, and I was like, I don't know. I studied God, I preached God. I have no idea what God is. I don't have any sense of this in my life. So I'm kind of a scam. And she's like, well, just keep being open and ask yourself what, ask if you can have some experience that would help you on that road. And at the time, the only thing I could capture as God was the wind, because it moves, and I can't, because I wanted to get rid of a God that had images, right? So the wind was something that I could kind of go, oh, it's there, it's beneficial at times, it's topsy and turvy, all those things. And so being allowed to be where I was, especially when I was in another part of my life supposed to be very positive about faith in God, that's when I knew that however I wanted to walk with people, and often they know about my background and they go, well, I can't do this because, you know all this stuff. And I'm like, no, that's not what that is. You can find your way. I'll walk with you, and I'll talk and open to anything you want to say, you want to experience about it. For me, it's just a fundamental thing that it isn't my, that I'm powerless in this life, not mine. So the gratitude comes from that. That also reminds me, this isn't mine. This is God's life, and we're all participating in it.
That's really good. That's really good. Now I know a lot of these were because you kind of broke down your process of experiencing something and writing it down and making sure you go through all that. And so during COVID, you kind of just brought together all of the stories. As an author and that wrote a book about my personal life, there were definitely stories that I wrote about that I was like, this is puts me very vulnerable, very, I'm out there for people. Were there any like particular stories, like your story about your friend Sarah passing away from cancer, that like I had tears in my eyes. I'm like, there's no way she wrote this without worrying about, was there any of the stories that are in there that you wanted to share, but you still were like emotionally like, this is part of me that I don't necessarily know if I want to give it to the world?
I don't think so. I have to go back. I think there's one or two stories that I didn't put in the book that maybe were a little too raw for me. I might at some point. I was more aware that that my daughter, who is now 37, not 2 or 3 like she was then, that I always say that to people, and they're like, oh, because they always picture this little girl, and I'm
That's
like,
what I was picturing. And I was like, oh, she's probably grown up since then.
yeah, she's 37, has 2 kids of her own. And the first time I kind of started to talk to her about doing it was a number of years ago, and I just didn't do it. And she was like, no, you can't do that. No. And so then when I really got serious, first of all, I looked at publishing law. Could I use her name and have it be, all that sort of stuff? But given that she has kids now, yeah, well, I just wanted to know,
I'm doing it anyway, just taking your name.
I do it anyway. And the truth is you can do it anyway. But because she has kids now, when I got ready to want to publish it, I asked her again, and I said, I've looked this over, and there's 2 choices. I can use your name, or I can change your name, right? And if I change your name, you become invisible to my life. Now, that might not bother you. That's fine, because it's out in the world. And what she said to me was maybe another God shot. She said, you can use my name because I now understand these are your stories that I happen to be in.
Yeah.
They're not my story. I said, right. They are not your story. Your story is a different story. You don't even maybe remember any of these things. Your childhood is your childhood. And And I don't, it's my experience with you in your childhood. So
Yeah.
that made it easier for us to do that. But
Yeah.
we had to have some conversations about it.
Yeah, I figured you did. So how do you hope God shots will impact your readers, both those who are already spiritual and those who may be seeking connection with God?
I hope it's a confirmation. I hope it's oh, okay, I get that. So when I'm, out in my garden enjoying my dahlias and et cetera, and noticing that there's little bugs on them at the same time, I can kind of go, oh yeah, the beauty and the difficulty come together,
Mm.
and so it's those kind of things that make me that I hope will happen, and that people can use it to, share with other people who are on some kind of journey, who maybe don't look at it from a particular denominational experience that may
Mm.
lead them to that or not.
That's very good. So, Pastor Ed, I see you up.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
here. Yes, I warned you I would be doing this. So we're gonna pause for just a second here, and I want you to have your questions, comments. Maybe you have a God shot moment to share, or something else that Libby has said that sparked a question. Have those ready. But I'm going to do a quick commercial here first. When I felt the call to do this work, I had a lot of people telling me, you should do this, you need to do this, it's needed. Nobody else is doing this. There's nobody resourcing mainline churches and progressive churches with good resources or talking about this problem, and it's a problem that's just insanely bad. I mean, we have people dying like crazy, and coming out of COVID, it was already bad before COVID. Coming out of COVID, it's way worse and getting worse. Not only just the addiction issues, but also mental health stuff. And so people out there are really struggling. And I have a vision that if every church on every street corner in this country were to do a little bit of something, we could have a huge impact. And I believe that if we start talking about this, we can have power over it. Problem is it's the kind of problem that people don't want to talk about. And I think it's built in because of the denial of it. I think we all have some denial around it. We want to pretend it's not there, or we think it's going to go away, but it's not. And what happens is we start talking about it. We learn so much about the disease, about people who struggle with it, but we also learn about ourselves. What I love about the conference that we do each year is that there inevitably somebody comes because they want to learn how to do ministry and help others with this problem. And they come to our conference and they come out the other side and they say, oh my gosh, this applies to me too. And they have a spiritual awakening. And it's that's incredibly satisfying for me to see people have their eyes open that way, to see that they struggle with this too. So when I started doing this, I thought, people were so enthusiastic about it. I thought it would just take off like a rocket, right? Of course, I'm that naive. What we found is the ministry is doing incredibly well. We're getting huge numbers of people participating in our events, but the finances have been a little slow, and so I really had to come to terms with that this year, because I quit my job to do this, and then I took out a loan to do this because I knew I needed some cash to get website up and to get some of these things going. So I'm totally in. I'm all in, and I'm going to do this no matter what, God willing. And so, but I have a need for help, and if I don't ask for help, I don't get it. So I'm asking for help to do this work, to continue to do it. There's so many more things I want to do, but I'm limited by resources. So I'm asking if you're in a place where you can share a little bit of what God has given you. I would certainly be glad to receive that. If you know somebody, I would love to hear about that. Email me, let me know, and we can make an approach of some kind. Or you could ask maybe somebody in recovery who does pretty well financially, and they care about this passionately. Maybe share the need with others. And the other thing is maybe your church has a foundation or a way of giving money to important missions. And so I would love to be included in that. So if you want to give me a lead there, that would be terrific. So I'm crying for help. I hope you will do that if you can. And please pray for the Center of Addiction and Faith as we do this work. I appreciate it. And now back to the show. Libby and George will take your questions and comments. So we'll all come together and everybody can share. And please remember to use the reaction button to raise your hand if you want to comment or share anything at all. So please have at it.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. This is the first time we've done it this way, Pastor Ed. So you said you would let me know if there was questions. So
Yep.
yeah, if any of you have your own story of a God shot, or if you want to know if it was a God shot, please, like Pastor Ed said, hit the reaction, raise your hand, and he's going to let me know that you're ready to speak, and it's going to keep that sort of in order. As we're, and I assume Ed, just interrupt me when
Yeah.
there is one. But until then, I wanted to ask you, Libby, about there was one story in there about family secrets. And I thought that was really profound about how your daughter asked what a family secret was. And you used the terminology that you had an allergic reaction to alcohol. I just thought it was really interesting. In hindsight now, do you think it's better that we use that verbiage, or that we just are able to say alcoholism as a disease?
I think it depends on the age, because I don't think she was old enough to understand what a disease was, but she had friends who had EpiPens, and stuff, so she could understand allergy. But as she got older, and potentially drinking herself, she was 13, 14 years old. What I told her was, okay, here's the deal. Your father's side of the family, a lot of heart disease. Your mother's side of the family, lots of cancer. Both sides of your family, alcoholism. And it's got a genetic component to it. And if you have it, once you start drinking, you will run into a lot of trouble and probably not be able to stop. So it's my advice to you that you put off drinking as long as you possibly can, hopefully into your 20s. So maybe, when the prefrontal cortex is a little more developed. But I want you to know this is your genetic history. And I never really talked about it again. And as far as I know, she doesn't have a problem with alcohol, but somebody said to me once, well, that won't happen. I'm like, oh no, no, you can't say that. You can't say that it won't happen. Just like I have friends still say, well, hasn't it been long enough? Couldn't you just have a drink? I said, well, I might be able to have one, but why would I do that if the possibility of me going down the tubes again was there? It's a little like asking someone, to eat strawberries without an EpiPen nearby if in fact they're allergic to it. So that's what she could understand, I think, at that time in her life. But since then, we've had more conversations. She used to go to meetings with me. So
Do you
I
think?
still marvel that I'm sorry, I still marvel that people are, even though the medical association and the legal system has pronounced this a legitimate disease, that people still think it's somehow a moral problem or a choice. And
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, it's definitely. But before people have to leave, I want to make sure I say, and I know that you're going to put up something for it, is I would really like to gift anyone on this call, or anyone if you're hearing it as a recording, I would like to gift you with a book of God shots, as I have a lot of them. And my reason is because I want them out in the world. I would love to have people talk about them. I'd love to have you go to Amazon and buy them, but that's not important to me right now. So my email, I think it's in the chat, but maybe
not
Katie,
yet.
not yet.
I was going to put it in there, but I wanted to make sure I had the right one because you said I have one that's not the one you want me to use.
Okay. It's Libbie Stellas, LIBBIESTELLAS @gmail.com. There we go. Katie just put it up in the chat.
Thanks, Katie.
Right. And yeah, send me an email. And when you send me an email and you say, yes, I'd love a book, make sure you give me your address. So we don't have to have too many back and forth. Because sometimes people say, yeah, I'd
Mhm.
love one. And I'm like, great, give me your address. Then they have to send me the address. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Anything, questions, comments have come up? Maybe not.
While we're
Yeah.
waiting, I just was going to make a question, comment sort of thing, maybe just an observation. But I've had God shots in my life. I've had moments where I just really felt like it was God. But I also come at that a little bit cautiously because I know that when I got into this program, when I was in my disease, I had this belief about God
Hmm.
that was really misguided. I mean, it was really bad theology. Basically, it was a bigger version of my dad, and my
Hmm.
dad was kind of a jerk. So I'm not saying that my image of God that God was kind of a jerk, but I had this idea that God was a little bit between Santa Claus and Genghis Khan. So if I was good, I got benefits. If I was bad, I suffered.
Mhm.
And so what I found in the program is I really always can't trust my own judgment when it comes to how I think about God. Um, and so I don't know what I'm asking there. I think it's just an observation that you have these moments. How do you know? How do you know that's just not you putting some meaning on a moment? And I think I know the answer or an answer to that, but I was curious as to if you've wrestled with that or if that question makes sense to you. How do you know it's a God shot or it's just something that you imagined?
Uh, well, I guess in all honesty, maybe I don't know, but I know in the moment that I feel connected to a loving God. And so I'm going to go with that. I don't use it for decision making, I don't
Mhm.
use, I don't kind of say, oh, if I, if I don't do it as like, okay, tell me, should I do this or that?
Mhm.
I don't use it in any way like that. Is it Joshua and the Jericho maybe that he's like, I'm gonna
Yeah,
put the sheepskin outside the tent.
Gideon.
If it's Gideon, if it's wet in the morning, then we're gonna do this. If it's dry in
Hmm.
the morning, then
Hmm.
we're not gonna do it. So he does it and it's wet and he's like, no, 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 I made a mistake. Do it the other way. And so and the answer kept coming up like whatever it meant that he had to kind of come to that decision
Yeah,
himself. So I think I pay attention to that a lot,
yeah,
Mm.
but I'm not using it for my own, what should I be doing in my life?
yeah. Well, if it makes you think about God, then there's something to it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Someone's
So
hand.
Ed, somebody's hands up.
Yeah,
Verna. Yes. Would you like to read the question or have her speak? Yeah, here we go.
yeah. She can unmute.
Hello, hi. Hello, thank you very much. What my question is in order to offer like the materials that you would like the church to offer, which I'm totally with you that the church is pretty quiet on addictions and stuff, which incidentally is something that I struggle with and that I feel like I would like to talk about more in the church. But for instance, for me, because I am struggling with addictions, am I the one to get a group together in the church and be a leader, or do I need to be clean and sober for X amount of time in order for me to get a community going around the topic of addictions? And then I guess yeah, that's my question.
Ed, do you want to answer that? Do you want me to say something?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So are you currently struggling active in the addiction and you're working to stop?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. I think one possibility that occurs to me is to what I found is that there's people in recovery in almost every church I've been to. If I go and preach at a church, I have about 3 or 4 people whisper in my ear afterwards, "I'm a friend of Bill W's," which is code for I'm in recovery myself. And
Mm.
so I know there are churchgoers who are in recovery. The problem is they don't tell anyone. You know, they don't. Church for some reason is not a safe place to talk about being broken. It's just and that baffles me, quite frankly. But you know, I feel like if there's a way that we could get people in recovery that are church goers to start talking about the recovery, come out of the closet with it, it revolutionizes the whole church. And so when you were talking, I was thinking it'd be really great if we could find some people who are in recovery who could journey with you, who go to your church. And maybe that's a thing to approach, is talk to your pastor and say, could you put something in the bulletin saying somebody here is struggling with this, would like some support, and then have them go through the pastor so you don't have to expose yourself in any uncomfortable way. And then that could be the basic basis for a group that could grow from that, I think. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for
But you know, there are so many meetings available out there that are already in existence. If you're looking for help now, I really suggest that you know, go look at the AA website and find an online meeting if that's a safe way to go, or find a local one that you can go in person.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where every one of us in recovery ended up, was wanting help but not sure where to get where sure to get it.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add is that you deserve to have yourself join. You don't have to go do something for the church. Do whatever you do, walk your journey for yourself. Start it there. There's lots of meetings. So
Yeah.
and
Thank
Kate,
you.
I think, has put in the chat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I suggest something, that if Verna would like
Yeah.
someone to accompany her through this
Yeah.
process, we have spiritual companions globally that will happily talk to you, walk with you, suggest meetings near you, even if they're not exactly in your same community.
Oh, right. And actually, I am one of those.
She is one.
One of those. Thank you for reminding
Hello.
me. Yeah, so you have the email me and we'll talk. Yeah.
That's right. Libby
Right.
can actually walk with you.
There we go.
Amen.
We're
So
getting
excited.
better. We're getting better every day.
It's better every day. Yeah.
Karen's
Thank
got a question. Karen, thanks for raising your hand.
Oh, you got to unmute, Karen. There we go.
Hi, Libby.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, Karen.
I just wanted to share my perspective on God shots.
Amen.
And for me, I consider them just little gifts of wisdom. Little gifts of wisdom. And I tend to have in my mind a running dialogue with God. So I'll just tell you about a God shot that luckily has a reoccurring element to it. And that is, there was a period of my life where I was doing a lot of traveling, and I always found myself attracted to all the luggage that people have lost or haven't picked up yet. And I kept sort of asking, why am I so fascinated by all the luggage? And one day I got a message that, like, maybe I'm trying to tell you that you could just leave your baggage right here. You could just drop your baggage and not claim it. What a great idea.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
often they are little bits of humor.
That's good.
Like that one. So I do agree with Libby that it's all about, for me, it's about slowing down and just recognizing the gift.
That's really good.
Good. Thank you, Karen. Now I have to out Karen, because Karen and I have known each other since we were 13 years old.
Oh, way.
Yeah.
Way.
We went to high school. We went to high school together. Yeah. So anyway, and we're still friends. Yeah.
Yes.
That's so great.
Yeah, I just wanted to read what Vanessa wrote to everybody. She said, Libbie has personally been my spiritual advisor, and the art of sharing my own God shot via text or the act of writing solidifies the God shot for me and allows me to incorporate it into my everyday life. Thanks, Libbie. Great presentation. And I did want to just comment on that as someone who has led hundreds of people. There is something powerful about the sharing of something. Something happens with God, the writing it down, the sharing with someone that really memorializes it within us. And the way that you put this together for the God shots is really it's really important and super foundational for how we grow in God. So I just really wanted to read that because I think it is so important for all of us to see.
Mm.
Thank you.
And,
Thank
and
you.
I would think that as you start noticing these things, you start seeing more and more. Is
Yeah,
that
yeah,
same
definitely,
something?
definitely.
Kit has her hand. Oh, I'm sorry, Libby,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, go ahead, Kit.
Kit, go ahead. You have to unmute.
Okay, am I there?
Yep, you're there or here.
Thank you. This has been absolutely wonderful. I've come to many of these talks. I am in upstate New York. I am technically an Episcopal priest, but most of my ministry has been in interfaith and non-denominational as a hospital chaplain,
Mm,
and spent a lot of time in emergency rooms with people who have come in various states of um, inebriation or whatever, or overdose. Um, in the Diocese of Central New York, the bishop here last year organized a 2-day event because she was so concerned about not both the laity and the clergy not really understanding what it was all about, and then encouraged everyone to go back and talk in their own parishes about it. I was invited to go to a parish and speak, and they said, okay, you got the pulpit for the sermon. And I just said, this fabulous event just happened. And I said, and I'm an alcoholic in recovery, and there were some gasps in the congregation. But as you had mentioned, after the service, 6 different people came up to me
yeah.
and said quietly, thank you for sharing. And one of them, one woman who is not in addiction, made the comment that the fact that I had talked to them all and said, you know, this is something we don't need to be ashamed of. This is a disease. If your spouse or yourself had cancer or some other disease, it would be out there and everybody would support you. And we've got to get to the point of doing that same thing with drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
Is a lot of what you've been talking about, but it's
Yeah.
encouraging to me. And I know that you've talked about it specifically. The Episcopal Church does have an organization, Recovery Ministries of the Episcopal Church, which is openly 12-step for alcoholics, people with addictions, and people who are spouses or partners of people. There is an online Zoom Wednesday evening meeting, which anybody is welcome to come to, and another way to connect, and people from all over the country. So thank you.
Yes.
And Libby, this has been fantastic.
Oh,
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kit. Yeah, the Episcopal Church ministry is quite a robust ministry, and I attend that Wednesday Zoom meeting. If you Google Episcopal Recovery Ministry, you'll get their website, and that's how you can connect to the meeting on Wednesday, which will be in a couple of hours or 4 hours, something like that. They also have a wonderful blog that people in recovery write pieces for. And my story about the ants is the blog post for this week, I think, or what was for last week. So I write for that as well.
All right, I got to be the bummer guy that cuts things off. We like to end right on time, so it is 1 o'clock. So I invite those of you who need to go, please feel free to go. As I suspected, if we went to this format and people were able to have conversation, it may be that some want to stick around afterwards and chat a little bit. So I invite you to stick around and we'll talk for a little bit. But if you got to go, please feel free to do that. Today's webinar is recorded and it'll be available on our free smartphone app and on our website, along with a huge library of other great videos and webinars that we've done. And again, today, Libbie's offering her book. If you email her, she'll send you a free copy. She's also doing a one-day book study online through the Center of Addiction and Faith, an opportunity to dig deeper into her book and share her own God and share your own God shots. If you want to register for that, there's a link in the Katie. I'm going to say this, and Katie will be putting a link in there, hopefully, for that registration site. So if you want to come to that one session book study, that's on September 17th at noon Central Time. And the link is there now, or it's coming. If you haven't gotten our smartphone app, I highly recommend it. It's got all of this on there. It's just chock full. People are amazed when they see it. They say, I can't believe this is all on here. It's all free. Go to your app store, look for Center of Addiction and Faith, and you can see all the great resources that are on there. And then we have some amazing events coming up. We have, besides the webinar next month, Alex Oshansky, sorry, I always murder his name. Alex Oshansky, he's a writer, a practitioner of somatic psychotherapy. He's an executive coach and the co-founder of Natura Care. He's going to be sharing his inaugural course called Life Not Wasted. It's designed to help you break free from the grip of contemporary addiction. So not just substances, but all the things in our culture that we get addicted to, and to cultivate a life so joyous you won't need an escape or a distraction. And there's a registration for that webinar next month. And then in October, we have our annual conference. Now that's the best thing we do all year is our conference. And this year is all virtual. So you can participate where you are. And we have our biggest lineup in terms of quantity and quality, but we have 6 keynote speakers, really dynamite, internationally known people. We have Adam Nimoy, who's the son of Spock from Star Trek, is going to share his recovery story and how he and his father were reconciled when they both got into recovery. An amazing story. And we have 29 breakout sessions, all designed to help faith communities know how to do this work in their church and give you all the tools you need, all the inspiration and education. That's all happening on October 19th. I'm going to put a link to a flyer for it in the chat page, and also a link to the website to explore it some more and to register. And then finally, I want to tell you about our event in February. If you are in recovery, regardless for how long, but we're doing a retreat for people in recovery, and we're calling it Serenity on the Sea. And it's a 4-night, 5-day cruise from Miami to the Caribbean. And each morning we'll have some time of devotion, and then we'll have a presentation on Richard Rohr's book, Breathing Underwater. And then we'll break out into small groups and discuss, and then you'll have the rest of the day to enjoy the boat. And each evening we'll have a 12-step meeting for both AA and Al-Anon. So if that's something that appeals to you, I'll put a link in for that as well. Here they all come. That's all I have. I wish you all God's blessings, and I hope you have a wonderful day. And thank you for being here. God bless you all.
Thank you.
I'm going to stick around so you can pull these links off if you want to, because they'll disappear once I close the meeting.
And please, I do hope I hear from you. If you just want to say hello in the email and share something, that would be great too. But I'm very happy to send you a book free of charge.
And I don't think I said thank you enough, Libbie, for doing this today. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
And you're giving us a lot to reflect on. And your generous offering of your book is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Verna. Do you take advantage of that offering? Um, yeah. Did you get the
I,
email you needed? Yeah,
yeah,
good.
yeah.
Good.
Thank
Well,
you.
I totally understand what you're dealing with. I've been there. It's, and you're right, you do need a group. You can't do it alone. Um,
Mhm.
I tried for so long. I just kept failing. It wasn't until I said to some other people out loud, I was screaming inside, I needed help. But I
Mhm.
couldn't say it to anyone because I thought if I say it out loud, I'm gonna have to do something about it. And part of me didn't want to do anything about it. Um, but it
Mhm.
wasn't until I finally got to the point where I said to another person out loud, I need help. And for some reason, we're designed to need one another. And when we open ourselves up like that, things change, and God becomes very real and powerful in our lives. So I hope I think you did that today. So good for you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, it's a reflective group.
Yes. I'm noticing my ability not to cough is wearing off. So
Yeah, I bet you're exhausted. This
yeah,
takes a lot
definitely
out of you to,
it does. Yeah. I was sort of like, I'm good this morning. And, but
yes.
the COVID on top of the excitement, on top of the speaking is like,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
So I'm going to wish you all a farewell. Thank you all so much for your kindness and listening and reflecting, and do email me if there's anything I can do to help.
Thank you, Libby. God bless you.
God bless you.
All right. If there's nothing else, are we good? Nice to see you, Kit.
Good to see you.
Wednesday
see
meeting
you.
is my favorite. I do
Mm.
3 meetings a week, and that's the one I look forward to the most. It's a great meeting. Okay, God bless.